I've recently been working on a short film named Vanguard, and it's been in development over the course of the past 9 months. And in this video I'm going to talk about particular aspects of that project, some of the opportunities that have arisen because of that project, as well as the reflection process and some of the skills I've developed over the course of these 9 months. Now, what is Vanguard? Vanguard is a short film. The story follows a medic who battles with the morality of being forced to kill someone in order to save himself and someone else. This is significant as it was considered a war crime, as medics weren't actually allowed to carry weapons or kill in war. They were on a battlefield to save life, not take it. So what happens if you put someone in that kill or be killed situation? That's the concept I ran with when writing the film. As for myself, I played 3 major roles in the process of the production. During pre-production, I played the role of a writer. This meant I was in charge of the script and the overall story going throughout the project. I worked closely with my executive producer Damon, who really kept me grounded and set realistic expectations for what I could actually achieve. I also played a major role in the organisational side, so I was in charge of getting props together while Damon mainly focused on casting. However, I did have a hand in cast selection. During the practical production phase of the project, I played the role of director. This meant I worked closely with actors, trying to get the best performance out of them that would really help the story, as well as managing crew and the extras. In total, I managed a team of about 30, ensuring everyone had everything they needed to do their job, such as the director of photography having correct lenses, there was a space for actors to go when they weren't needed on set, as well as food for the catering team to supply to the rest of the cast and crew. In addition to this, I was also in charge of ensuring all the props made it to set on time and the set was dressed appropriately. Now on to post-production. During this phase, I played the role of an editor, where my actual skill set lies. I worked closely with a VFX artist and music composer and cut together each scene, ensuring each cut was deliberate and invisible. This was so the edit didn't seem jarring and take the viewer out of the viewing experience. However, the post-production process came with its own set of challenges. One such challenge was as follows. During the shooting process of scene 3, which we filmed on day 1, we didn't have access to the replica rifles supplied to us on day 2, so we used the prop musket rifles we used in rehearsals, which are a few centuries too early for World War II. This posed a particularly tricky problem in the edit, as I needed to ensure that the viewer couldn't tell that the rifle had been swapped between scenes. So I cut round it best I could, using mainly close-up shots of both actors, and only cutting to a mid or a wide when the actor's back was facing the camera. This allowed the actor's body to cover the majority of the rifle, so the audience member could see that he was still holding a gun, but not quite realise that it had changed. This is something I believe I did particularly well when completing that scene. So what have I actually learned from undertaking this project? Well, one main lesson in particular is the importance of teamwork and networking. I don't think I could have pulled off what I did if I hadn't worked with a team. And I feel like taking the time to be sociable with people that you work with or meet on set can really benefit you in the long run. Now, I had some idea of this going into the project. However, I didn't realise how important it was to secure extra work in this industry. This is supported by filmmaker Matt Alonso, who talks about in an interview his experiences with networking and how important it is.
So I didn't believe in interacting. I didn't believe in, having coffee and things of that sort. For me, it was just, if it didn't move right away, then there was no benefit. And as I got older, I realized that you have the best work in the world, but if you don't have the contacts or you don't have good relationships with people that don't want to work with you, you're not going to work.
So Matt speaks about the importance of socialising and getting to know the individuals you work with. This can often lead to future work, as this industry isn't like a normal one. It's often who you know that'll get you the work, not necessarily what you know. If word gets round that you're a dedicated individual with a good work ethic, you're going to get more jobs than someone that wouldn't necessarily have those qualities. Now, I've had first-hand experience of this being the case. I've managed to secure 3 separate paid jobs in the up-and-coming months. Now, during the process of making this film, I have developed a lot of new skills, and working with professionals has really helped with that. One of the main skills that I have developed would be directing, as prior to completing Vanguard, I had no actual directing experience at all. This was the first project I've ever done. I worked closely with my exec producer on the day of production, as when everyone arrived, they then turned to me for direction on what to do, which for someone that has never directed before can be really intimidating. It felt very much like a trial by fire, however I am grateful for the experience. Fortunately, my executive producer had a lot of experience directing, and he acted almost like a mentor to me on the 2 days that we shot. This kept a lot of the pressure off myself as he kept me on the right track during the shoot, and I was eager to direct the project, because I'd done some research prior to the shoot on the importance of getting actual directing experience. And when I say directing experience, I mean actual directing experience, not working as an assistant on set or working as an editor or watching other people do it. I mean, you're the director on a set, what you say goes. This is a point that Jason Stutland made on an interview with Film Courage.
You have to get experience directing. And if you were to ask yourself, how many hours have you actually spent directing? Like this is not on set. This is not on set as a PA or editing or even writing. How many hours have you spent actually directing? How many hours would that actually be? That is so vital, because when you get your shot, when someone does open that door for you, you better hit the ground running and know exactly how to do it.
So with that being said, and me actually directing on Vanguard, it gave me the experience I needed in that role, and in doing that, as well as a little help from my exec producer, it taught me how to get the best performances out of my actors. And now that I have that actual experience under my belt, I can be a bit more confident when applying for directing jobs. Another skill I've developed would be my editing. And with Vanguard being the first short film I've ever edited, I found that it was a completely different ballgame when compared to what I normally do. Instead of motion graphics and fancy effects, my editing had to be invisible. Each cut had to be deliberate and well thought out. Going into this, I knew that coverage would play an important part on how well I could put my film together, which is why I did some reading before production even started and came across a book called The Art of the Cut by Greg Keast. In it, there's a section on the importance of coverage. If it's not shot, it can't be edited, which makes sense, because if you've got no footage, then you're not going to be able to edit anything, no matter how good you are. Another quote from the same section is as follows: "The worst thing a filmmaker can do is not shoot enough coverage to give the editor all the footage that he or she might need." I believe that it's very much the philosophy of you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. By shooting a lot of coverage in each scene, it gives myself, the editor, enough creative freedom to really convey the story through the editing, as well as different ways to hide cuts and blend different takes together seamlessly. Fortunately, I was able to put my film editing skills to the test during pre-production, as my executive producer for Vanguard was hosting a workshop for young actors, teaching them how to act on screen. In it, they were given a scene and a script that they had to act out in front of cameras being recorded by a professional crew. In doing this, I learned how an actual film set would function and the benefits of shooting on slates. This is so that in post I knew exactly how many camera angles I had for each scene. I was then tasked with cutting these scenes together for the producer. I learned a lot from this experience, and it allowed me to make the mistakes that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to afford to make on my own set, which overall allowed Vanguard's filming and editing process to go a lot smoother. It was a skill that I learned, practiced, and put to use on my film. I believe that reflecting on my work has been really beneficial, as by doing that I've learned some of the biggest lessons when it comes to filmmaking. I kind of see it as that old saying, everything makes sense with hindsight. And at its core, that's what I think reflection is. Hindsight. It allows you to look back on your work with the hindsight of the decisions you've made and the results of making those decisions. By reflecting on a mistake, you can work out where you went wrong, learn from it, and find out what you can do differently on a next project. I found myself doing this quite a lot on my time on this course, constantly trying out new things, seeing what worked, didn't, and always looking back on my previous work to see where my weakest points were, so I can learn from them. An example of this would be the time I learned about the importance of time management. In the past, I found myself working right up to the deadline on certain modules, and since then I've reflected on why that was the case and realised my issue lied with my time management. And since reflecting on it, I've been able to put a lot more thought into planning. And as a result of that, I found myself being able to get more done in a more reasonable time frame. Though I will admit this is a lesson I'm still learning today. Though I'd argue if my time management skills haven't at least improved through reflective practice, then I wouldn't have been able to pull off a project like Vanguard, especially with the scope of it. I came across a YouTube video by Jake Parker, and I think some of the points he makes are really interesting. He made me realise that my time is valuable, and that I should shift my mindset into looking at it that way. The point I'm trying to get at here is you need to utilise your time in the best way possible. This lesson really hit home for me because I feel like I wasn't utilising my time in the best way, and by reflecting and learning from it, I've managed to organise myself and pull off a project that I can honestly say I'm really proud of. So after I graduate this course, I do want to go into the film industry as a narrative film editor. But to do that, I need to make connections and get my work seen and out there. Now, as I touched on before, I was fortunate enough to work beside some industry professionals, and I really took advantage of that opportunity while I had it. And I asked them a few questions like, What should I do to get my work out there and get consistent work in the industry? And Damon, the executive producer, turned to me and said this: mate, just keep doing what you're doing. The more contacts you have and the more people you work with, the more work you're going to get, which is something that really did stick with me. As I really feel like I made an effort to get to know everyone that gave up their time to help me out on my project. And from it, I've already been offered additional work on projects from the crew that I worked with that day. In addition to this, I'm also in negotiations with an acting company that are wanting some promotional videos done. It may not be film, but it's another opportunity to network, and it's paid work that has come as a result from working on Vanguard. And it might give me the opportunity to call upon those actors in the future